Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this, the Cult Movie Podcast, Cult Potato. As always, I am your host, Campion, joined by my good buddy, Grady. How's it going, Grady?
I just want to get off the bat here and just mention, everybody makes mistakes, okay? Look, I got taught that by a great Hannah Montana, and I'm going to continue that through here.
Grady, this movie blows. Usually we do a bit of banter off the top, you know. Sometimes we jump right into it, but Grady, this movie blows. This was a really bad movie.
Look, I'd give it a solid 4 out of 10.
We've seen worse movies. Alright?
Monty Python was worse than this.
The worst experience, but it was a much better put together film. I would give
2001 was a worse film than this. I think this might fall in. It's definitely bottom 5 for sure. You're probably going to put it lower than I'm going to put it.
Probably, but the other ones are just okay. But those films are just because they just don't appeal to us, or we just don't get it, Grady. This is, from an objective standpoint, is a terrible movie.
There was nothing wrong with this film. It was perfect.
Okay, a bit of background. Of course, this is the 1996 Doctor Who.
Oh yeah, we didn't even say what film we're talking about.
It's in the title,
thumbnail,
Grady.
Yeah.
No one's gonna click on this and not know what it is. The 1996 made-for-television movie Doctor Who. Although I think this did get like a limited release in cinema. The first and I'm pretty sure the first appearance of Paul McGann as the 8th Doctor. One of only 2 appearances. The second appearance, which I have seen, is exponentially better than this one.
Not hard.
Yes. It also means that this is technically this is both the shortest and longest run of any actor who played the Doctor, depending on how you look at it. But before we leap into all this, I've just jumped in this just assuming that whoever clicked on this is familiar with Doctor Who, which to be honest they probably are. But Grady, for anyone at home who clicked on the Doctor Who video and doesn't know anything about Doctor Who, why don't you give us a quick rundown?
Alrighty, Doctor Who. There's this guy called the Doctor. He's a cat, so he's got like 13 lives. He just dies and comes back as another human. It's called really cheap recasting. Really famous for some of the Doctor's amazing villains. You know, the Daleks, the Cybermen, and this movie decides to feature none of those, and instead just feature the evil Doctor, but I'm sure we'll get to him later.
Okay, the Master is an established and beloved villain of the franchise.
Look, if you were not a diehard Doctor Who fan...
Not this version of the Master. Not this version, but the character in general is a beloved...
You can't tell me this wouldn't have been better as a Dalek film. Okay?
Of which there are several Dalek films.
It would have gotten, I guess, better mainstream recognition. The Doctor also gets complete and utter amnesia and remembers absolutely nothing when he regenerates, it seems, and just falls in love with the first woman he sees. I think that's all of the cause. He's time-traveling, Time Lord, kind of, maybe. He flies around in a TARDIS, which looks like a phone box. And I hope you knew all of that coming into this movie, because they do not tell you for a single second.
This movie both has a lack of exposition, and yet way too much of it. I don't know how you can achieve that, because just I feel like they don't tell you they don't tell you the bare bone basic premise of what you need to know about the series. But they do include all of this random exposition that they just dump on you at random points about just completely irrelevant things.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I did have to give a lot more serious of a Doctor Who rundown than that to my partner that I was watching this with. They knew a little bit, but you gotta hammer home a few of the points that the movie just completely brushes over and does not explain in any way whatsoever. And then they had to sit through this slog of a movie, so hey.
Yeah. Oh no, but great. They take the time, they take precious running time out of this film to explain what TARDIS stands for. That's what's important here. I mean, don't give us a basic rundown of what the whole conceit of this thing is. But we got to know that it's time in relative dimensions in space.
Yep, we learn that, and we kind of vaguely get told that it travels through time a little bit, and that it got stuck in a phone box camouflage.
For a Doctor Who movie, not a lot of time and space travel. It's just present day London, which was actually shot in Canada.
Actually, it was future London. It was the 2000s when this came out in 1996.
Oh, you're right. I completely missed that. You are correct.
They were weirdly capitalizing on Y2K, but didn't reference Y2K once.
Which I think if you're going to do a Doctor Who thing and you can do a Y2K thing with the Doctor, you think there's some crazy stuff you could do with that. It's like, oh, that was caused by the Cybermen or the Daleks or whatever.
Nah. He just sort of dies because he gets shot in like the most American thing possible.
I like that well, for starters, they brought back Sylvester McCoy as the 7th Doctor, which I thought was a nice touch.
It's like the only thing you can credit this film with doing.
Yes, they did bring back Sylvester McCoy, although I would argue that having him come up, it's like, this is the main character, okay, and then he dies and replaced with another character, with another actor, and I'm just like, I feel that, because this was specifically made to sell the show to American audiences, they were hoping this would, springboard a whole new Doctor Who thing in
It didn't,
America.
Spoilers.
No, it didn't. So maybe if you're gonna do that, maybe don't switch out your main actor, like, in the first 10 minutes of the film, without explaining why. Just I don't know, maybe they could have I think if they just started the film with Paul McGann, as much as I did enjoy seeing Sylvester McCoy, like, I think that they should have just, started off with Paul McGann.
That being said, Sylvester McCoy's 10 minutes is much better than Paul McGann's hour and 20.
To be fair, with the material McGann had to work with, could you blame him?
No, he had a really rough film.
Yeah.
And I think when I mentioned I was watching this movie to one of my mates, Lance, the first thing was just like, why would you do that to yourself? And yes. I believe the exact quote was, that is such Americanized garbage.
It's okay. For Americanizations, as far as they go, for Americanizations of brilliant British programming, it's not the worst I've seen. This isn't...
Is that a high bar?
Higher than you'd think. This isn't the American pilot for the IT Crowd.
That's
or
true.
Or either of the American pilots for Red Dwarf, which are both atrocious. I would... Okay, just a small... Okay, so for the IT Crowd, they brought back Richard Ayoade as Moss, right? Which is the good decision. You can't have anyone else playing that. You know who they got to play Roy? The slobby, chubby Irish guy. You know who they brought in to play him?
I used to remember, and now I don't. I've erased this entire
Jeff
thing
from Community.
Yeah.
Joe Watts' face. It's just like, no, that's... And they did the same thing for Red Dwarf, because, he's like the slobbish, northern, working class Englander kind of guy, and they brought in like this... really good-looking, generic Hollywood actor man.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure maybe my brain... Because I didn't watch a lot of the really early Doctor stuff, like the stuff before this. Most of my Doctor Who knowledge is coming from 9, 10, 11, 12.
The revival?
Yeah, and, 10 and onwards. Probably only up to... Sorry, not even Tennant. Davidson. Probably up to Smith. I don't think I might watch much more after that.
You mean David Tennant?
Pete Davidson, David Tennant, Matt Smith.
Damn it.
You're
screwing with me, right? Like, I know that's probably a joke and I'm ruining it, but I just have to make sure that you're aware that the Ninth Doctor was not Pete Davidson.
Funnier if it was, wouldn't it?
No, the series would have died immediately. The revival would have died, like, on arrival.
Fine, Eccleston.
Thank you.
Jeez. But yeah, that's where mine all comes from. And so maybe there was a lot of running around getting shot up by gangs. But I don't remember a lot of that.
Well, I've seen a little bit, not heaps. I'm not exactly an expert on the subject, but from just the cursory research I've done, no, this was somehow the most realistic and grounded death of the Doctor. Is by comparison just makes it just kind of silly.
I think the whole hospital sequence is kind of silly. You know, the massive medical malpractice.
Oh yeah, she just kills a guy. Oh, okay. So the companion for this thing is a woman. She's a surgeon at a hospital in San Francisco. She takes the Doctor in after he's been shot up. We also at the hospital we get someone who is one of the less talented actors of the film, the big fat orderly dude.
Will Sasso?
Sorry?
Which one are you talking about? You talking about the morgue guy?
The morgue guy, yeah.
Yeah, Will Sasso.
You're saying that as if that's a name I should recognize.
Oh, it is.
Oh, hang on. Let me quickly look that up.
How do you not have IMDb up, bro? He's literally one of the Three Stooges. There's just going to be this awkward pause here while Campion gets up the IMDb page that he should have loaded up prior to this, and then he could have told you that the surgeon's called Dr. Grace Holloway, played by Daphne Ashbrook, when he was introducing that character. And he wouldn't be looking it up rapidly right now.
Which I am. However, I did find out that Christopher Eccleston and Peter Capaldi, they were offered the role of the Doctor in this film, which they turned down.
Well, they made the right call.
Yes, and they would later go on to play the 8th and 12th incarnation of the Doctor, which was the best call, if I'm being honest.
I don't have the fondest memories of Eccleston.
I really like Eccleston's run. I thought it was quite good.
I do also have only very vague memories of all of the runs, to be fair. He's still trying to find this IMDb page.
I did.
He got there? You got there?
Yes, and you are correct. I do see Three Stooges credits. But okay, when you said that, I thought you meant like the original Three Stooges.
No. Not that old. Please. 96, Campion. 96.
You was about to say, doesn't look that old. Wait, they're making a sequel to the...
He's gotten way distracted. He just wanted to shit on Will Sasso's acting, okay?
It was terrible. It was genuinely terrible.
Was it better or worse when he was wearing the Nixon mask?
The what?
Oh my god.
I've forgotten so much of this movie, Grady. I genuinely watched it in a just this haze of just...
When he went to the Halloween costume party, he went in the Nixon rubber mask. I'm gonna give up on you. Okay.
I forgot that entire scene. Genuinely, it's all just gone.
Oh, I can see where you rate this film.
Although, you know what they were replaced by, Grady? Scenes of Eric Roberts acting out the Master. He has the dubious honor of being the only American actor to portray the Master. And off the top of my head, he may be the only American actor to portray a Time Lord in the series, period. Don't quote me on that, but I'm just going over all the Time Lords I know in my head, and all of them are British, except for this guy.
Yeah, I'd go with you. I think most of the main characters have been British full stop. And so this would be the one chance, really, to buck that trend.
Mm.
So I would believe you. Carve it in stone, itch it in. It's official.
Of course, Eric Roberts, the brother of Julia Roberts, someone who has had a much better and much more successful career than him. Probably the most famous thing Eric Roberts has ever done was
as the Master and Doctor.
No, he played one of the crime lords in The Dark Knight.
Okay.
I forget, because there's so many. I think it was Maroni. Yes, he played Maroni in The Dark Knight.
Yes.
He also has, he also starred in such celebrated classics such as Sharktopus and A Talking Cat! ! Which are real films, which I have both seen.
I'm disappointed that you've seen those films. Look, I'm just gonna look at it this way, right? Like, it's a film that expects you to know what the premise is and all of these bits and pieces. They expect you to know who the Master is, who the Doctor is, TARDIS, space-time travel, all of this stuff. And so it's like, okay, so you can if you're doing that, you're making it for the fans, you can kind of expect people to know some lore and do some stuff. So let's make the entire plot of the film just a random room in the TARDIS that's never been opened before, and only humans can open it, and drop lore things like the Doctor's half human and all this other stuff.
Why humans can open it?
I think there was one line where, like, the Doctor was like, I've never opened that, and the Master was like, that's because you're only half human, and then makes the human open it. And it was
where did that come from as well? It's like, he just stops that random guy, and he's like, I'm half human, and it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
Explain?
It's like, it's what you said at the start, basically. It expects you to know so much lore, but then it just doesn't, like, use anything. Why make this entire new concept? You got so much to play with, and you make some weird eye thing that humans can open and let you see through the Doctor's eyes.
Yeah, it was called, what was it called, like the Eye of Harmony or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, which from what I remember, it's been a while since I've watched Doctor Who, and I'm not very familiar with the classic series. I'm pretty sure the Eye of Harmony is something in Doctor Who.
Okay.
But it is not that. They just took the name and they just slapped it on something else.
Don't make me go to the Who wiki.
I'm already going there.
Oh. Now it's a typing race. I butchered it all.
The Eye of Time, the Great... Yeah, the Eye of Rassilon Star. So it's not even in the TARDIS. It's just...
Yep.
It's a thing. Most important. It was a singularity at the center of the web of time, the power source which made all of Galifrey and time travel possible. Also, it ties to the Time Lord's power of regeneration. Okay, that's okay. Ties to regeneration. That they somewhat followed that.
Yeah, they were using it to steal lives or regeneration. So yeah, I guess.
Additionally, while many accounts showed that the Eye of Harmony somehow existed at the core of the Doctor's TARDIS, albeit disagreeing on how this was the case. In other words, this movie did it, and I suppose other things have just attempted to explain that away.
Yeah. Whoops. It's a rough one. Like, I've heard people try to argue that this movie isn't canon. They've made it pretty clear that it is, but they have reworked a lot of stuff that happened in this film.
Just to make it work?
Yeah, because it was so weird. It would be like if as you say, the pilot for the American IT crowd counted as canon, and then they had to, like, just jack that into the British version and continue off of it. Maybe at the time you should have made the call that it wasn't canon, but they made the call, they went forward with it, and...
And for what it's worth, Paul McGann has reprised his role as the Eighth Doctor a number of times. This is why it's weird, because he had, like, one on-screen appearance in this film, and he didn't have another one all the way until, like, 2013, during the whole War Doctor thing. But, like, he technically is one of the longest stretches, because in between this period and the revival, he was the last Doctor. So, you know, he reprised him a lot in, like, audio dramas, and there's quite a few of them. And from what I've heard, a lot of the stuff that he did after this is actually pretty good. And they even brought Eric Roberts back to play the Master a few times. So,
yeah, it's this movie is just such a weird blotch in the Doctor Who sphere. It's like you have the classic stuff, you have this abomination, and then you have the revival stuff. And they're so disjointed.
Yeah, like it doesn't even like feel like a Doctor Who story. Like it doesn't even feel all that science fiction-y. It has a slight it has a fantasy-ish kind of bent to it. You know, it has those kinds of elements. But it doesn't feel, you know, like a sci-fi adventure story. It's mostly just a couple of people dicking around in a room and bumming around San Francisco for an hour and a half.
Yeah, it's very grounded and very Earth-based. And again, if you're trying to launch Doctor Who, why are you on Earth? You have, like, so many planets, so many monsters, so many different things that are established. Just go use them.
Or at least, if you're on Earth, you know, bring us some aliens and monsters. Like, the Doctor Who revival, the very first episode is entirely set on Earth. But there's monsters running on, you know, dealing with the Autons, the living plastic creatures. They're running around as these, like, mannequins who, like, shooting people and stuff. Like, that's fun. You know, hey, it's a fun sci-fi adventure story.
Or you could have the Blorgons.
I don't remember who that... Hang on.
That was the Community Inspector Spacetime villains.
Okay. I'm sorry, there's just been so many Doctor Who aliens, I genuinely stopped and was like, oh god, are the Blorgons a Doctor Who thing?
You forgot Community lore.
You're right, I forgot the obscure lore behind Inspector Spacetime.
They're important, okay? The Blorgons are pretty important. They eradicate.
I still love that line where it's just like, come, Constable, we don't have much space. I love
that. Yeah, you know, sometimes when we have a bad film, we have like a really long episode where we're just sitting there and just pooping on it constantly.
Yeah.
And then this one feels like there's just so little. Like, this movie was only, I think, like an hour 25. It was super short.
It felt way longer than that, because very little happens.
Yeah, nothing happens for that whole hour 25.
I genuinely thought it was way longer than that. Like, I know I said an hour and a half earlier. I was lowballing it. I thought it was way longer.
That's real short. But, like, I don't really understand who this film is for. Like, if it's for Doctor Who fans, they hated it. If it was for mainstream fans, you did a shit job of introducing all the concepts. Like, it just tries to straddle this weird middle ground, and instead of making everybody happy, they just pissed off everybody.
Yeah, because, like, non-fans who watch this will be like, oh, that's kind of a crappy movie. And the fans who watch it's like, wow, that's a crappy movie. I watched it and I thought, wow, this is a crappy movie. Like, oh man, like the part where Eric Roberts dresses up as the Master and he's doing that ridiculous, like, overacting just nonsense. I felt secondhand embarrassment for the guy.
Yeah.
And I watched a talking cat, Grady.
Yeah, I don't know what the budget of this film is, and I know that's usually a piece we hit at the end, but as well, I just want to hit up and mention that the CGI, and I know it was 1996, but come on, there was some horrible garbage in this film.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It has better production values than your typical British TV show would usually have, right? Like, it had a bit more money than usual.
Mm-hmm.
That CGI still looked terrible.
Yeah, the CGI was just not great. Like, I feel like if you look at classic Doctor Who or, as you say, other British sci-fi shows that don't have a big budget, they work around it.
You know, just early sci-fi shows in general just all look terrible. But usually what they do is that they have terrible production values, but still, you know, a good, engaging story. Whereas this had decent production values with the occasional dip here and there, and just a nothing burger of a story. What was even Grady, what actually happened? What was the whole point of this film? Like, I could not tell you. Like, the Master was trying to open an eye, steal one of the Doctor's lives, even though the Master can possess other people, so he technically has infinite lives, so I don't see why this is a problem for him.
Yeah, I don't know. Obviously, I don't know my deep Doctor Who lore, but yeah, the Master lost all of his lives, and then he just turned into a weird goo snake. I don't know if that's an all-time Lords thing or what.
Why did he turn... I thought, it's going to be like a bunch of slime. It's okay, but then it hisses, and it's like an actual cobra, and I'm like, why are you a cobra, good sir?
He just decides goo snake is what he wants to be. They do say that when he possesses people, they're like, this body won't last long. So I imagine the taking over and stuff is a limited time thing. I thought maybe we'd see him hopping between bodies, but we did not. And then, yeah, the Doctor just sort of...
He kind of did. He possessed the surgeon lady.
Yeah, he sort of possessed them, but he was still in his main body during that time. And then he's got, like, the gift of the gab, where his eyes can go horridly CGI green. And all of a sudden people are persuaded by him, but that's different to him actually taking over the surgeon lady.
He has quasi-hypnotism powers, except I don't think it was supposed to be hypnotism.
I don't know what he was doing, man. He wanted a life. He wanted to steal, I presume, all of the remaining regenerations from the Doctor. He did not succeed in said mission, and Master dead again. Spoilers for the revival. Master not dead.
Well, yes, the Master's one of the most popular characters in the franchise. They're never going to kill him off.
They did. They turned him into a goo snake. We just watched him.
Straight up, when the goose snake hissed, I lost it. I could not stop laughing. It was ridiculous. It was great. I was just like, why are you a cobra? And then it hissed, and then I just lost it. It was great.
Was there anything, I guess, that you actually liked about this film?
I did like the interior design. Okay, the Eye of Harmony notwithstanding, I did like the interior design of the TARDIS. It's not just like a console in the middle of like this big room with a bunch of weird tubes and lights. It felt like an actual... You know, he had like a library near the TARDIS console. It felt like an actual home, and it's a very different approach that not a lot of other TARDIS designs have really gone for. I liked the more homely kind of, comfy kind of TARDIS.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was quite nice. And of course we got to see Sylvester McCoy. And again, if you're introducing it to a new audience, maybe don't have him in there, but when we got him, it's still cool to see him.
Yeah. Oof. I'm trying to quickly run through Master lore here of how he gets more lives, and this shit rough. This shit is a little harder.
Yep.
I'm not even going to attempt to explain that. Nope. Some stuff happens, man. They really try and retcon a lot of things in this film.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was just a slog of a film to get through, which was disappointing. I knew it wasn't a very loved film. I'm pretty sure I'd seen it before when I was, younger, and I don't remember any of the film. Not usually a good start. But I still expected it to be a little bit better.
I watched the film last night, and I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I expected it just to be a little bit better. Not the most big masterpiece, but I expected there to be some boxes I could tick and be like, yeah, it was good at this, or it was good at this. I don't know if I could have ticked any of those, man. The concept was bad, the story was bad, I didn't like much about this film. But it didn't make me want to tear out my eyeballs, so, it's got that going.
It's not the worst film that we've ever seen.
There's no N-words. There's no homophobic language. So, definitely not the worst film we watched. But yeah, I can see why it failed to launch Doctor Who into the American mainstream. That was what its goal was, it failed miserably.
And in fact, it would be another decade or so before they'd actually manage to get a successful relaunch out the door. Which
Only
is
a
still
decade?
going to this day. Yeah, 2005, 6.
I don't remember when it came back.
It was definitely like mid to late.
2005.
Yeah, there we go.
So 9 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Look, that wasn't a crazy length of time.
No. In fact, I think there was a shorter gap between this movie and the revival, and this movie and the previous series.
Sylvester McCoy, 89. So, big math. No, 7 years between Sylvester McCoy and this movie.
Okay.
And then 9 off the other end.
Okay. So not like colossal gaps, but still. Although, I think that when people talk about the gap between the original series and the revival, they're not including this movie.
No.
They talk about it. And to be fair to Paul McGann, like as like a short episode. Well, it was more like a short film that they made to kind of as like the lead-in to the whole John Hurt as the War Doctor.
Mm-hmm.
They actually did because Paul McGann never got the whole death and regeneration thing because his film never came out. So they actually did make like a short thing discussing that. This was while the Time War was going on, and the Eighth Doctor and palling around for a while. He meets someone who could possibly be a companion, but this is at a point where the Time War has been going on for a while, and so she's absolutely terrified of him, and she ends up dying. And then Paul McGann decides that okay, well. And he meets these like weird priest witch scientist ladies who are just like, no, we can use that science to help you control your next generation. And so the next generation that they make is the War Doctor, one who's just a straight up soldier. And it's actually it's not very long, but it's very, very good. And if you want to see Paul McGann like do it, like actually have good material to work with, and do a good job, I would highly recommend watching The Night of the Doctor. It's very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good Doctor Who stuff out there. Unfortunately, this is not one of them. No. And unfortunately for this episode of the podcast, that's all I got.
There really isn't a lot to this movie. Like, it just kind of happens. They just fluff around a bit in San Francisco, and that's about it.
Yeah.
How did he even win in the day? I don't remember that at all. How did he win?
Oh, you ask a good question.
Neither of us can remember. Oh.
I think it had something to do with the Asian man, whose name I'm also forgetting.
I can't remember.
Chang Li.
I only remember the Doctor and the Master's name because they're all pre-existing characters, and they're not even names; they're just job titles.
Yeah, I think it had to do with Chang Li deciding to take the Doctor's side instead of the Master's side, but I don't remember exactly how it worked out. He convinced him to come to the good side or something like that, and ended up paying him in gold dust.
Yeah. Which
it seems like the Doctor just carries a bunch of.
Is gold dust even that valuable?
I don't know.
I actually don't know. I always thought that... I mean, I assume it would be, because you could just melt it down until, like, it's a brick form.
But, pound for pound, there's not a lot of it. Like, it takes up a lot more space than just a block of gold.
Yeah, and judging by how easily they can heft that bag around, there probably isn't, that much gold in there.
Maybe he just wanted to snort the gold dust.
It was San Francisco in the 90s, so that is a possibility.
That can't be good for you.
Probably better than some of the other stuff they were doing back then.
I don't know, this is a literal metal.
Anyway, Grady, I think that's going to be it for us, right? Not unless you've got anything else that you need to, you really need to get out there or discuss. Anything else you want to add?
If you're not a Doctor Who fan, don't watch this film. If you're a Doctor Who fan, Don't watch this film.
Don't watch this film. You know, there's plenty of other audio adventures starring Paul McGann but you know, they're more worth your time.
Definitely.
Yes. This film obviously didn't do very well. In terms of ratings, it actually did fairly well in the UK, but again, that's mostly because Doctor Who was an already established brand in the United Kingdom, so they, you know, you put that on TV, people checked it out. They didn't like it, but they checked it out.
Yeah, it wasn't well received.
No, but it didn't do well in the US to kick off another television series, which we would not get until 2005 when Christopher Eccleston would take over as the.
I think you mean Pete
Doctor.
Davidson.
Shut up, Grady. Anyway, that's us today. Shorter episode.
You haven't told me how much budget it had.
Do you care? Do you genuinely care?
No, I don't. It also didn't make any money, I guess, because it was for the television.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't. No, it doesn't even have a budget. Yeah, that's the thing. It's a TV movie, so trying to find a budget is a nightmare.
Yeah. Alrighty, I guess I can tell you the next episode theme then.
What's coming up, Grady? Well, we've finished the Community season. What's coming up, Grady?
Well, we did finish the Community season. We watched The Breakfast Club, Pulp Fiction, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and Doctor Who, the movie. So, Campion, what would make sense for us to go straight on into after the Community season?
All 11 Star Trek movies?
What about if I said Community itself? You went through the torture of some of these films so that you could finally get there at the start of the final season with its first episode on Community.
Wait, the whole thing?
The whole show.
I can't watch 6 seasons in a goddamn week, Grady.
Well, you should be lucky you don't have a movie to watch as well.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Alright, I haven't done my yearly rewatch, so I guess I can do that. Anyway, everyone, thank you for joining us today on today's episode of Cold Potato as we talked about the Doctor Who movie. Glad that it's all over. Join us next week when we kick off the next season. With
the final season.
The final season, yes, you're right. The final season of Cold Potato with the Community, the entire show. Grady, anything else you want to add before we close out the show today? I'm throwing it to you. I usually don't do this, but I'm throwing it to you, Grady. Anything else you want to add?
I'm totally not watching the entire show in a week. I'm going to watch a couple of cool episodes here and there to watch as highlights to rejig my memory for sure.
You cheater. Anyway, that's going to do it for us today. Thank you for joining us today on Cold Potato. As always, I am Campion, joined by my good co-host Grady. This has been the Lexicon of Lore, and we hope to see you all next time.
I'm sorry for making you sit through that film.